Hey friends, hello, happy Thursday. Welcome to Craft Your Joy Live. I'm Lisa Hetrick and we are live finally. I was running a little bit late, sorry about that, but I am here now and I have a really fun card tutorial to share with you today. We're going to have some fun with this. I'm going to do something a little bit different that I haven't done before. Hi TJ, hello, hello. People are going to be popping in and out, but I'm going to get started so that I don't go over today. I can't guarantee that that won't happen, but I'm going to try not to go over today. Okay, so this week was my brand new release with Gina K Designs. I had two brand new die sets that released this week. One is called Basket of All Seasons, and the other one is Basket of All Seasons, the winter set, which kind of indicates that there might be a spring set and a fall set and a, other set. So kind of fun. Some things that might be coming down the pike a little bit. But today I wanted to use those dies and show you how to emboss with them. And we're going to do a little bit of watercoloring with them with some Gina K inks. Hello, Della. Good morning. Okay. So I have a couple things going on here. So we're going to be kind of super technique heavy today between watercoloring with Gina K inks and showing you the emboss technique with the dies. So a little bit of everything. Hi, Daisy. Hi, Cheryl. Have you warmed up from yesterday? That's such a good question. Cheryl, it is so windy right now. And I took my scarf off before we went live. And because most of you have seen the video of my studio space, like I have windows that are like right in front of me and I have a window, big window here, and I don't have like drapes or window coverings. So if it's windy and a little chilly, some of that air gets in. I kind of like it because I tend to run a little hot, but wow, it went from like warm to like windy and in the 50s. So here we are. We're in the fall, friends. All right, let's dive in and get started with our tutorial today. Okay, let's see if my face will pop in. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. It's been a weird day. So here is the inspiration for our project today. And I wanted to share, here are the two sets. Hi, Susanna from Finland. Hello. Here are the two sets that released this week. Basket of All Seasons and Basket of All Seasons Winter. I'm going to show some of the inspiration for these sets a little bit later after we do our techniques. But we're going to focus today on this die and creating an embossed patterned background on watercolor paper. And I'm going to show you how I do that with the intricate. And like the little formula that I have for doing it. It works. So I'm pretty sure it's a good formula, but hey, you never know. So this card, when I created it, I was like, oh, I really want to splash some watercolor on it and really see what that does to bring out the embossed features of the poinsettia. But I didn't do that because when I did this, I was like, oh, I really like that tone on tone kind of look. And I said, I'll save that for a tutorial. So that's our technique tutorial today. We're going to dive in. All right. I don't have a lot of space here on my desk because I've got things everywhere. Okay. Now, Susanna said, Lisa, that card is so wonderful. I also love the blue card. The blue card you showed. Friends, I have all the cards and I'm going to here's the blue card you're talking about. And I'm going to talk about, we're going to do a little bit of this technique today too. I'm going to share the inspiration for these two sets towards the end. Just so we can recap what happened earlier this week. But I wanted to get to the technique just in case people had to pop out early. And friends, along the way, if you have questions along the way, just pop them in the chat with question. My chat is right over here. I can see everybody and I will answer them. That's the beautiful thing. That's what I love so much about going live is that A, it's unscripted and I don't have to edit. B, I get to interact with you and your questions live. So we're having a real time conversation. Like we're just together having tea or Diet Dr. Pepper or whatever you like to drink. So, yes, Susanna. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, let's dive in. Now, we're going to take, I want to talk a little bit about the design of this winter set. So these dies are really proportionally kind of large because you have the options to do them for any of your paper crafting projects. I shared a couple of samples. Let's pop one of the cards. A couple of samples of what the dies look like and how they do take up a significant amount of space on a card, but it gives you a lot of versatility. And one of the things that I built in to these dies, I built it in here, but I built it in specifically to this die. I love this big wonky poinsettia. If we cut it in red or pink or even white, it looks like a poinsettia. But if you cut it in another color, it looks like a sunflower or any other kind of beautiful flower. I know, TJ, doesn't it? It's amazing that we can craft and chat with each other across the world. It's cool. So in this die set, I built in the cut lines. So the center portion cuts or not if you don't want to pop them out. But these little veins, they actually deboss. So we get a lot more texture in the die cut. So there's a little more variety instead of it being a flat die cut. So here's what I mean. You can see that debossing in there in the veins. So it's very subtle, but it adds a little bit of something extra to the die cut. And I just love it. So I'm going to use that today to do some debossing into watercolor paper. And I'm just going to show you, like, here's an example of doing that same technique that I'm getting ready to share with you into a piece of the Petunia cardstock. I am using the new Petunia cardstock from Gina K. I absolutely love this color. I mean, I'm a freak about passionate pink. I love that color. But this Petunia has, like, I'm going to nerd out for a second about watercolor names. Thank you, Susanna. I do too. This Petunia has a little bit of like a magenta and an opera rose. If those two came together and became like fast friends, and this is that color, Petunia. I just love it. I love that Gina added it. It's just so gorgeous, and we're going to play with it today. So here is that technique done in a tone on tone here on the Petunia. So I'm going to show you a little blending technique with this, and we're going to do a little bit of watercoloring. But let's get started with, I'm going to bring in the intracut, and I'm going to show you just like a one pass through of how you can take this die and create an embossed pattern in watercolor paper. You can do it in any kind of cardstock, but we're doing it in watercolor paper today because I want to do some watercoloring. Because in my head, I think this is going to work. So we'll see. All right, now the formula. Hello, everyone. I see more people popping in. Okay, this is my intracut. It is, and it's dirty, friends. I've got ink all over it. It's a mess, but I absolutely love it. Usually I bring the mini in, but we need the big honker. We need the big honking intracut today. Now, if you have a different die cutter, like this is Gina K's die cutter, I really, really like it. It's easy on my wrist because I have a little bit of carpal tunnel, and it doesn't do that patonk sound when you're running things through. So I have used many other die cutters, and you may have like a Sizzix or a Spellbinders, or there's so many different ones. I've used, my second favorite would probably be the Spellbinders Platinum 6, but I did gift that to a friend. So, hello, Cherie. Okay, I'm opening this up, and I want to talk a little bit about the sandwich. I'm not a die cut expert, and Gina makes it really like super easy for the platforms. So you're using the platform, and again, friends, my platforms aren't clean. You use this black silicone mat. because that's going to enable us to use the die and make it not cut. And then you put your paper down. And then we put the die, which I didn't know where I put the die. So I'm just going to get the die in here so that you can see it. And I'm going to drop the die like right there and pop it in. Got a little bit. And then you put the B plate on. Now, I've played with this sandwich quite a bit in the intricate. Let's move this up a little bit. On the side, she has built in 3D emboss, letterpress 2D emboss, and die cut. And then you have this down here at the bottom for the press and the for the pressure. So here's the formula that I think works the best for this technique using the intricate. And that's a little bit blurry because it's going to focus down low, but I'll read it. I turn this to letterpress, which I already have it turned to letterpress. It'll say letterpress 2D emboss. The pressure, I've played with different pressures for this technique, from 0, which is what I have it on now, to 2. So 2 would make it a little more intense, 0 would make it less intense. So B plate, black silicone matte, and then the platform. So right now I have it on 0. I'm going to run it through. And you can, this is how, I feel like doing this technique is a lot like baking bread. And I bake a lot of bread. You kind of get a feel for it, right? So this is on 2, and that felt like, yes, there was some pressure, but not a lot. So I'm going to pull this back through. And yes, there would be an impression, a letterpress like impression, and I'll show you that impression. That impression is going to happen. You see it did. It's pretty nice. I actually like it. You can see that it went through, but it didn't die cut all the way through because that die is pushing in to the paper to the mat. So I had this on 2, and that worked out really, really well for this watercolor paper. Now, if you're going to use, and this paper is 100 pounds, this is my favorite watercolor paper, friends. Everybody knows this. All friends here today know that I use Strathmore Ready Cut watercolor. So this is 140 pound paper. So Gina K's heavyweight paper, you may want to put the pressure on like a 0 or a 1. So you just kind of play with it a little bit. Good morning, Cheryl. So I'm going to do this again. And I'm going to lighten up the pressure. So I had it on 0. I'm going to pop this on. Let's move this. No, I didn't. I had it on 2. So I'm going to back it off to 0 and just kind of show you. Like with the 0, I can feel there's tension. So 0 more tension, 2, 1 a little less tension, 2 a little less tension. So sort of like when I talk about watercolor being whole milk, 2% milk, and skim milk. I would say 2 is like the skim milk. 0 is more like our whole milk. I can feel the tension. I can feel that the impression is probably going to be a little bit deeper than the 2. But let's take a look. And so you can see that impression? It is deeper. You know what? Let's pull this out so that we can really see, because I've showed that part. Oop, we don't want that to hit the ground. And we want to kind of really take a peek at that impression. So you see that impression is a lot deeper. You can see when you're looking at the back side that this impression is deeper than this impression. So again, this was 0 pressure. This was 2. So that's why I put that range between 0 and 2 for the pressure. 2 is kind of light. It's nice. We can still see it. 0 is deeper, a little more intentional, especially if we're going to do some blending techniques or watercolor techniques where we want things to get into the crevices a little bit. And so if I take this paper right here, the Petunia, and I flip it over, you can kind of see which were zeros and which were twos. Like there's my 0. See how much is how deep it's going, but it didn't go all the way through. Love that. This was like a 2. And this one right here, you can feel it. It's just a little more subtle. Just a whole little more subtle. Okay. All right. Loving it. Okay. So we use one die and just kind of showing you that. So I see some of the comments. Yeah, TJ, the intercut is so easy. I totally get it though, but the intercut is so easy. And the other machines, I had 2 other machines. One of them I broke. It was the Sizzix one. I broke the handle. I dropped the plat. It just was a bad scene. I broke the whole thing, and it was my oldest piece. It was like one of their originals. And then the Platinum 6, I really, really liked, and I ended up gifting it to a friend because I really liked the intercut for my hand. That's literally why I loved it. And then once I got it, it was just like super, super easy. I didn't have like all these sandwichy things to remember. It was just dials and really getting a good feel for it. So that's what I love. I love, love, love. Oh, Cheryl, you have 3 die cutting machines. Pop in the chat which ones you have. There's so many good ones out there. And that's why I say, when you find one that you love, just play around with it. So doing this technique, if you don't have the intercut, just play around with that sandwich, you know, the different platforms, the sandwich of the platform. And I literally feel like it's like baking bread. You get a good feeling for when you're turning it, if it's too much or not enough. So, okay, hopefully that's helpful. All right, I am going to pull this one in. Now, I will share, friends, that I had already pre-did this one for us before we went. I wanted to show you the technique. Yes, Cheryl. And then I wanted to show you here, I varied the pressure between 0 and 2. We've got our 0. You can see you have to be kind of wary because 0 can sometimes really buckle the paper, especially when where it meets, where there's tighter spots on the die. It can buckle. And then you can even feel it. You can see it from the back, which one had a little bit more of an impression from 0 to 2. But to build the pattern, I ran this through. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So we're just kind of nesting it in different positions and running it through to build that pattern. I just love it. TJ just said, Cheryl, I have 4. So funny. Cracks me up. Crafters, man, we just love our things, don't we? Okay, now, before we get into the watercolor experiment, because here was my watercolor experiment, and you can't even see the blooms. So this is, used Petunia, Kelly Green, and Marigold. Love these 3 colors. I love this color combination. I feel like they're like little preppy colors too, which is kind of fun. But I do love them for the holidays. Oh, thank you, TJ. Misting the paper with water helps with the buckling and cracking. Thank you. I did not know that. And now I do. Okay, so I learned a little bit of a lesson. I really wanted to use these colors because I think they're beautiful and I think they're going to be really beautiful watercolors. But I lost the impression of my poinsettias. So we're going to back up a little bit. I definitely had a whole milk kind of consistency going. So we're going to back up to our skim milk consistency of these new colors. Oh, Spellbinder platform at the Scout and the Gemini. I'm not familiar with the Scout, or maybe I am. The Gemini I am too. So we're going to experiment with that a little bit. So I got 2 ways I want to share. I am going to share. I did this tone on tone embossing with the poinsettia. Now I'm going to come in with a little bit of Petunia. I'm not the best blender in the world, but I'm getting better. I'm getting better. Yeah, if you really, really want to like get with the experts on blending, you should look at Mindy Egan's channel. And also Scrapbook and Cards Today has a brand new class coming up. It's like a 4-week class, 4-week session of classes, and it's blending boot camp. Oh, and the lineup is amazing. And Gina is in the lineup because holy smokes, she is a blending queen too. Okay, I'm very good at blending with these tools. Not so good blending with the big, big tools. And yes, Luann, this is the Petunia paper. Oh, Cheryl, the Scout is the smaller version of the Spellbinders. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Okay, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to do a little bit of blending around my die cut impressions and see what happens. So I'm starting off at the edge. Just kind of wanted to see. This is an experiment. I am so rough-handed and heavy-handed. I kind of like it, but you can see where I've got little boops because I am not a blending professional. But it's good to know that you can do this kind of blending, and with that Petunia tone on tone, I love it. So I'm intentionally putting a lot of color down here on this one because this was the 0. This was the 0 impression. So I'm kind of loving that. As a technique, you just know that you would be able to do this. And this would be amazing. And you could go over the whole thing if you wanted to. But you probably don't want to use this brush. I feel like this brush makes me a better blender, which isn't necessarily true. But this is one way to get that tone on tone impression if you're trying to add a little bit more color to this. And this is super messy. I'm not going to use this for a card today. I just kind of wanted to share that little technique. So you can see how I can get those colors in that crevice. Oh, Cheryl, you signed up for Crop and Create. Oh, you're going to love it. You are going to love it. Friends, I've already started working on stuff for Crop and Create next year. I have the absolute honor and privilege to work with Catherine, and I help support all of those events through a lot of different design projects. So I have the absolute pleasure of doing that. Oh, Cheryl just shared. If we got together with our die cut machines, we can be in die cut heaven. I have 5. Cheryl Cranston, you have 5. The Cheryls in the chat have 8 die cutting machines collectively. That's wild. Ladies, I bow down to you. Okay, digging this. This was kind of a little bit of a nerd out derail. Now, let's dive in to actually splashing some watercolor around. Before we do it on the real deal, we're going to do it here on the piece that we just did together. And I'm going to show you what I think when you're working with inks, when you're working with watercolor paint, different kind of medium. When we're working with inks for our watercolor, yes, they're water-based, but they're dye-based. So their vibrancy is kind of jacked up a little bit. See how vibrant they are, even with very, very little color. Super, super vibrant because they're inks. But the Gina K colors, hello, they're just so gorgeous to paint with. So this is what we're going to do. In order to get that washy watercolor effect on these embossed details, we've got to work in a little bit of a lighter wash. I'm going to take a little bit of this Petunia down and a little bit of this Marigold down. I don't know if I'm going to use the Kelly Green. I might. We'll see. Now I'm going to take my paper, and I could either do this with a brush, get my whole paper wet, so we're working wet into wet, but I'm going to take my paper and I'm just going to mist it and get it nice and wet. This is 100% cotton watercolor paper, and I want it to get wet rather quickly. Take my brush. I'm just using a number 6 round. You could use whatever watercolor brush you have, and see how I'm really watering down this petunia or magenta. Magenta meets opera rose. I'm going to drop a little bit in the center and just kind of coax it around a little bit. And see how I really want it to be wet and washy, because it's getting into the crevasses of the die cut. Oh my God, I just totally nerded out. But in order to get this look and feel, see how I'm dancing the brush around? We are really, really working in light washes with the ink. Could come in and you can add a little bit more to areas where there's crevice, because I really want those details of the die, the impression of the die to come through. But doing this with ink, really got to work in thin layers. Oh, Cheryl, you just ordered the colors in the basket die set. Oh, you're going to have so much fun. Can't wait for the future ones to come out. Just so much versatility. I'm just dancing my brush around the edge. When Gina and I met to talk about this set, we talked about doing a basket. We talked about like doing a couple of different things with it, but she was the one that had the idea of making it into like a gift card option. So we just kept noodling the idea and taking it a step further and taking it even like further and further, so that we could build in that gift card option, but also build in versatility. Yes, Cheryl, this is on the watercolor paper. This technique, oh, I almost lost that. This technique, I am using Strathmore Ready Cut watercolor. That's 100% cotton watercolor paper. This particular technique, you could use a Canson watercolor paper or any kind of 140-pound cold press watercolor paper that isn't 100% cotton, because we're working with inks. Okay, so this really seems kind of vibrant. I want to just, while it's still wet, I just want to pull a little bit of it away from a couple areas. And you can see that these light washes help that die, that embossed die, keep its texture. Now I'm going to dry this. I'm going to dry it back. It still feels like it might be a little bit too much to me. I'm going to take a little bit of the Marigold. Just thought about this real quick. I always use a little bit of yellow. I'm going to drop a little bit of Marigold in the middle. I like to use a little bit of yellow with pink, especially with flowers, because it jacks up the luminosity of the color. And it just kind of adds a little something extra to it. Now let's go ahead and dry this. And then I'm going to see if I feel like we need to add another layer just to bring forth some of the embossed areas. We'll see. Yay, Cheryl. Yes. The intention of that set was to create like add-ons that, again, like the winter set, can stand alone in your card making and paper crafting projects, or can be used in combination with the basket set. I can't wait to show you how I'm going to integrate that basket set into some of the other stamp sets from this entire year for our holiday lineup of projects, which I'll talk about before we leave each other today. Okay, see, now this has gotten really dry. And the impression is still there, but it's we've lost it just a little bit. So this is what's tricky about this particular dye, right? And the debossing into watercolor. I really wanted to have that ethereal look, and you know that it's there. And if you gave that to someone, they could see it. But I want to, oh yeah, the gold pen, Cheryl. I used the gold pen on this one, and I actually am going to use the gold pen today. But you could easily outline. We'll do that, Cheryl. We'll do that on our final. So I'm going to add in, just going to add in a little bit of water. Now, unlike watercolor, this is dry. This is ink. It's dry. It's not going to move. I'm going to add a little bit of water in some of these areas where the crevices are. I don't know if I like that, but we'll see. I didn't pre-practice this project, friends. So I'm just kind of dancing the brush around. And I've noodled with this idea, and whether or not I'm going to like it is to be determined. But I do think that we're almost there. So see how I'm just going to drop a little bit in those crevice areas and see what that does. Now the Gina K inks are just absolutely beautiful to watercolor with, but they do have a drying agent in them that makes them work so well for our paper crafting projects and our card making projects. I'm thinking I'm kind of digging that. But I also do feel like I've lost my lines a little bit. That's okay. Let's just go ahead and keep pursuing. Let's keep pursuing this adventure. It's there. I can see it. It's there. But remember how I said before we got started on this that it's like there's a fine line between skim milk and whole milk. So when we're using watercolor, you can build up layers from light to dark. But when we're using inks, we really want to really water this down. And I really thought I had it super watered down when we got started. But I didn't. But I kind of love the look of it still. And I think like when I turn it this way, look at that. You can still see the lines. So we're going to move ahead. We're going to move ahead and do it on our final. I'm going to work in lighter washes. So you're learning right now alongside me because I didn't pre-experiment with this. I had a sense in my head based on the other things that I've done, how it might work. But you know, this is the beauty of these kind of tutorials that we get to do this together. All right, let's come in. Let's get going. I'm going to set this to the side. And the whole reason why I'm sharing this today is, of course, you can get the die set and you can do all the die cutting, all the stenciling, all the wonderful things that make dies absolutely beautiful and wonderful to work with. But I like to talk, today's technique is about versatility and adding more options for techniques for you with your dies and your inks. Yes. Cheryl, good question. Are you able to add the impression back in if needed? So here's what I have discovered. We could take this, line this die back up because that impression is deep enough, and we could run that back through. So let's do that real quickly. Now that you've asked that question, because it's such a great question. Hi, Irma. Great to see you. Let's do it. Now, the reason why that would work, I've got to grab a different platform. So the reason why it would work is because, all right, let's get back in here. I would have to change my die cutter back to, oh, no, I wouldn't. Oh my gosh, I just blanked. I just totally blanked, friends. I don't need the die cutter part. I need to get back my, um, my sandwich. Because I've put this in and you can see I've got it in, I've got that die in the, it's in the impression. So I can put it back in here. I am going to take a little piece of this funky tape I got over here. Just kind of hold that down. Just to be sure. But let's pop that through. Cheryl, what a great idea. I'm glad that we're live because we're doing this in real time and we're learning this together. I keep this on the 0. So 0 is my deepest impression. And let's go with that. Oh, I can feel it. You can feel that there's a little bit of tension there. I'm going to run it through, going to run it back. Now, if you wanted a little bit, even a little bit more tension, you could come out to the -1. I'm not going to do that because I have a feeling I'm going to cut through it. So I'm not going to do that right now. All right, let me pull this off. I knew that was going to rip because that part was a little bit wet. But look at that. Let's get this die cutter out of the way so that you can see. So yes. Oh, thinking. Get a little heavy sometimes. Let's move that. Where I just put it is not very stable. There we go. Look at that. We ran that back through and that impression got even deeper. So that's an option. That is an absolute great option. And I can see myself doing that. I can see myself doing that, like, especially for something like a tag. And if we have time today, we might just do this again. I could also run this through the die cutter and cut this whole thing out if I wanted to, or cut it out by hand if I wanted to. So many options. Thank you, Cheryl, for such the great idea. So let's dive in. All right, we've got so many little techniques going on today. Let's get a little tighter. Hopefully that's nice and tight there. I'm going to wet the paper. We're going to come in and I am going to go even lighter with this Petunia color. Even lighter. Let's go ahead and wet our paper. Just get this nice and wet. It can take it because it's 100% cotton. Thank you, Cheryl, for sharing that technique with me because that's like your fail proof right there. If you want that watercolor a little bit deeper, I'm going to try this one. I feel like I should have got a bigger brush, but I'm going to try this one. Look, I'm going to add so much water to this Petunia. Now, watercoloring with your inks is like one of my absolute favorite things to do because we have our inks. So why not stretch that medium? But remember, they just behave differently than a watercolor paint would. We can do a lot of the same techniques, but they behave differently because they're not pigment. They are ink. They're ink. Love it. Today is like super duper. Sorry, there's a sirens. Part of my street is like 3 miles long and part of it's shut down right now because they're working on it. They're repaving. So there's all kinds of trucks and things been happening. All right, you can see that I'm just gingerly dropping in some of these colors. I mean, some of this Petunia. And I'm dancing my brush around because I really want to preserve a really, really pale version of this color. Looks like that ambulance just went down the road. Okay. And just kind of dancing my brush around. I want to see if I can just really make this washy watercolory. Look how juicy this is. And just kind of preserve this look a little bit. And let some of those poinsettias. You can see which poinsettias were darker pressure, like a deeper pressure, between that 0 and 2. 2 being lighter, 0 being deeper. Cheryl, could you use the Better Press cardstock instead of watercolor? Absolutely. You could use just you just need to, if you're going to do this water-based technique, you just need to make sure that your cardstock will take the water. We'll be able to stand up to the water because we got a lot of water here, a lot of ink, and not buckle. Or if it buckles, it's fine. You can kind of like run that through your die cutter or take a little iron to the back of it and really dry that out. But if it starts to peel, like sometimes if you try to watercolor on regular paper, it'll start to peel out, you know, and it'll get like all the pulp of the paper will start to come away. And you don't want that because then you'll get mad. You'll get mad. All right, I'm taking a little bit of a paper towel here and I'm just kind of sopping up. And you can see, here's the difference. Here's some of the differences between using watercolor and using ink. Using ink, as soon as I put it down, that pressure that I used in putting it down stays. Right? It stays. I'm not really able to go in and just kind of move that around. See, I've got that stained part of the watercolor paper. So that's just our difference, but it's beautiful nonetheless. All right, I'm just being really cautious about adding some of this in because I don't want it to get too dark. And right now I feel like I can see my poinsettias. Let's take a little bit of that yellow. I may regret this. Drop a little yellow in the center, like right here and here. And then just kind of dance it around as much as possible. But you can see where I dropped it, it stays. So kind of digging it, kind of liking it. Kind of a little bit of a mixed feeling about it. But we're going to keep forging on and see where we go with it. Oh, Cheryl Cranston just said the Spellbinders Better Pressed paper is 100% cotton. So yeah. Oh, if you guys try this out, let me know. TJ, brush dancing. And TJ said you're the master of subtle. So funny. All right, I'm going to dry this back. And then I'm either going to love it or list it. Right? Like the TV show. No. Nerd. Love it or list it. Oh yeah, it's wet. Okay. Started to buckle because I just snorted. It's still a little bit wet. Let's go ahead and dry that. Without burning myself. Okay. Everybody's just sharing that they're going to try this technique. I can't wait for you to try it. Okay, here's how I'm feeling about it. I like it. I feel like we've got a washy watercolor effect and we definitely have an ethereal like look to our pattern here. I'm kind of liking it. We're going to end up using this a die cut that we're going to straight up watercolor probably over top of it. But I think, let's bring this back in. Very, very light washes. We have not lost our texture. It's very, very subtle. Look at this one. A lot more intense. Adding some more color back in. I kind of want to do that. We've got the time. I kind of want to do it for one of the poinsettias and bring a little bit of focal attention to something. So let's talk this through. Here's where I'm going with this. Taking a look at everybody's chats. Okay, here's where I'm going with this. I want to create a lot of contrast, depth, and dimension with this card with very, very simple layers, letting the die cut, the texture from the embossing, and our watercolor kind of do their job in providing that look and feel of the 3D texture. So I know I'm going to end up putting, I've got my sentiment here. Let's just think about the sentiment. Now we're going to nerd out a little bit about design while we're doing this. I know I'm going to put the sentiments like probably somewhere down here. Probably. And I know I'm probably going to put this right here-ish. But I want to create some kind of relationship between this and this. Okay. So what I'm thinking is, let's go back in and add and double emboss this one and this one. Let's run it back through and see what that looks like. And that idea from Cheryl just set the pace for the tide of our whole new re-engineering of what we're doing. Thank you again, Cheryl. All right, what did I do with the die? TJ said, I want to try the wet into wet with the shape to see if it pulls in the grooves. Yeah, it will. It'll pull in the grooves. But here's watercolor, I think, is going to work a little bit better for that. It really is, because you have watercolor's pigment. We are able to move it and smooth it out. When we're using our inks, which are absolutely beautiful and vibrant, the second the brush hits the paper, it immediately begins its staining process, right? So I'm going to go back in here. Let's get this in the frame a little bit more. And I'm going to line up my die. We're going to run this back through. Hopefully I line it up right. Let me, oh no. Let's just keep going. There we go. Find it. Find that little lock. See how I found that little spot where it kind of locked into the dent? I'm going to take a little bit of tape. I love this, friends. We are like live designing together with all of your great ideas. Top left and middle right. Yeah, I'm going to do this one and this one. We're going to do the top left while we're in the thick of it too. I'm here. I'm in the thick of it. Let's double back and see how that looks. That didn't feel super tight, but I really do feel it's because the paper's a little bit wet. Oh, we brought back that texture. Look at that. Look at that. All right, let's get my eyeballs going here. We're going to do this one and this one. And then we're going to let this one be a little more ethereal in its impression. And after I get this part done, we're going to go back in and add just a smidge of the Petunia back in the crevasses to see if we can pop that a little bit more. Okay. Oh, TJ, good point. As it is so soft, I think I'd outline it in white gel pen rather than gold. I love that idea too. Love that idea. All right, look at that. See how that popped too? Oh, I'm digging this. I'm really, really digging this. So a couple thoughts as I'm doing this. If you didn't want to go to all this trouble of like doing the embossing and then doing it again, you could just add your watercolor blobs down on your paper and then do your pattern. But honestly, here, I'm trying to get this in that groove. There we go. Until I feel that groove. Honestly, I think that it's worth it. I think it's worth it to do it this way. because you're also experimenting and you're learning new things. And that's why I think it's worth it. Hey, Karen, thanks for joining our We're Doing It Live, It's Going Sideways tutorial. Because we're designing together, which is like my favorite thing to do is to collaborate. So look at that. Look at what we brought back. Oh my gosh. This is way better than like the way I thought it was going to be in my head. Oh, friends, don't judge how dirty my intercut is. It is so dirty. I just really need to clean it. Really need to clean it. Look at this. Cheryl, this is amazing. So Cheryl is the one that came up with our idea of running that die back and doing that. I would call that a double embossing. Oh my gosh, can you imagine like how that will look with these snowflakes? Eek, eek. Okay. All right. This is where things could go sideways, friends. Totally worth it. Totally agree it. Totally agree, TJ. Totally agree, Tanya. Fun experimenting on this on live because we're all learning like in real time, right? Nobody knows what they're doing. We're all just experimenting. We come on these tutorials and we teach you what we know, right? We teach what we know and then we learn new things along the way. Absolutely worth it. All right, I'm going to see how I feel about this. I'm not really 100% sure. I just really love that. But I think we need just a little pop of Petunia in the crevices. And I'm a little nervous about this. Just a little bit nervous. Because now, if we were working with watercolor, I'd be less nervous. But we're working with inks. And I just know. Okay, I'm not as nervous now. See how I just wanted that tiny bit of, I'm going to dance my brush around a little bit because I want it to be a little more subtle, but I want there to be a little bit of, you can feel that there's dimension there. Because again, this technique in my head and the way it's rolling out right now is that we're creating all these levels of texture and dimension with color, with embossing, and simple layers, a simple layered die cut. So love the subtlety of that. Yes. How is it not cutting out? Starlit. Okay, it's not cutting out because we are doing an embossing technique using the intercut. You can do this with any kind of die cutter, but the technique requires you to use your plate, a mat, a silicone mat, so it's the die is impressing into the silicone mat and not cutting all the way through. So the intention here is showing some alternative ideas to use with your die cuts. And you can do this with any die cut that you have. So you might have something similar. I'm going to drop a little bit of that color right there in the crevasses, just to kind of bring a little something back. It's not as subtle as I'd like it to be, so I'm going to dance my brush around a little bit here. Dance my brush around. Love that. So we're giving it a little life again. We see the impression. Look, we can still see our impression here. We can see our impression here. So we've got layers of subtlety and dimension, and we're using color. The pop of the Petunia is working out great. I was concerned, friends. Dropping this in here. And again, if I was just using watercolor, I know I would be able to like manipulate this a little bit differently. But we're using our inks as watercolor mediums because we all have inks, friends, and we need to know how to use them in all the different ways. Okay, that was a lot right there, but we're going to come back to that. And again, still keeping this kind of at that skim milk consistency. And I'm going to work a little faster because I want to brush dance that around a little bit. Drop that in a little bit more, cleaning off my brush, dance this around because wherever you drop that ink, it's going to stain that paper. And I don't want it to stain and kind of look bluesy. Oh, I'm digging this. I'm resisting the urge to add, maybe not. I'm resisting the urge to add a little bit more. So because we're working in these light layers here, I'm getting brave. And I feel like, oh, okay. All right, let's play a little bit more. Let's add a little bit more. But now I'm going to stop because my brain is like, Lisa, you're going to go a little too far and you will regret it. All right, I'm cleaning this up. Oh, Karen. Karen, sorry I missed it. Are you using the new colors? Yes. I'm using Petunia and Marigold. I was going to use Kelly Green because I was going to do some embossing with the holly, and I decided not to do that. So this does really define the petals. Now look at this. I couldn't be more happy with this. This is so pretty. And then this is going to be, we're going to layer this on top, the final card. All right, friends, I'm going to let you all vote because I could go either way with this. I'm going to dry this, and then I'm going to tell you what I'm going to have you vote on, and then we're going to assemble the card. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and dry this. A little smoosh in there. Oh my gosh, this turned out so good. It's very washy-washy. Still a little bit wet up there. I cannot wait to see you all try this. And when you do, please tag me if you share it in the Gina K Facebook group or on your own social media platforms, whatever you share it, tag me, please, or email it to me if you're not comfortable doing that. I cannot wait to see it. All right, I love this. This could stand alone, right? Here's our card base. I'm using Petunia because I absolutely love this color. This could easily stand alone with a few little bits and bobbles, right? Put a few little bits and bobbles and pop your sentiment on. And that would just be absolutely lovely. However, here's what we're going to do. We're going to vote. I want to use this embellishment because I think it will just add another level of texture and dimension. We're going to pop this Happy Holidays up. It's probably going to be closer to down here at the bottom. And this embellishment, this die cut of the poinsettia, you know, we're kind of fits really nicely. You see this little spot right there? It kind of fits really nicely going like that. Or if I've got that little tiny bit right here, see how that little H, that little spot? So I'm creating a relationship between this die cut and that sentiment. But here's the poll. Let me know in the chat. Should we apply some Petunia ink and make the die cut? Leave the die cut white and plain. And maybe we'll add a little bit of gold to the center. Maybe. Yeah, gold would pop it out a little bit. Or do we make the die cut washy Petunia with a little bit of Marigold? So while you're all discussing that in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and apply some glue to the back of this and get this glued down onto the Petunia cardstock. And this is an A2 card, and I'm looking around for my glue, which is right here. Just a sentiment and some splatter would also look nice. Oh, Cheryl, you were on it today. You talked about splatter, and I already have this sitting here because I think splatter is going to happen no matter what. But I can't wait to hear what you have in the chat. And friends, I said that we weren't going to go over today, but we're running a little bit over. Let me get my glue going. You like it towards the Y. Washy on the edges. Luann, I love that idea. White with a yellow center. I love that idea too. All right. Washy around the edges. So we're sort of adding a little bit of blending, a little bit of color to our edges of that die cut, but in that washy Petunia color. White spatter. White spatter is definitely happening. Washy the flower. White with splatter. Leave it white and let the background be the star. Daisy, that is kind of like where my brain was. Leave it white, color the edges. Another vote, like Luann and Judith both shared. Leave it white, add a little bit to the edges. And I think that we could do that. And then add our spatter. Got a little bit of glue here. I'm using Connect glue because it works really well with our watercolor paper in getting it on the cardstock really smoothly. It also gives me a little opportunity to move it if I need to. Oh, that card looks so good. Okay, while we're still thinking about it, while you're all still voting on this one, I'm going to add a little bit of white spatter to this so that we wouldn't get white spatter on top of the die cut. Again, another ambulance going by, if you can hear it. Yes, just white. White flour and spatter. All right, friends, let's put the splatter on. Listen to me, I'm getting so excited. Let's get some splatter on, right? Let's get a little bit of this white down here. This is just bleed proof white. You could use any kind of opaque white that you have. You could even use acrylic paint if you had acrylic paint. Just if you're using white acrylic paint, just water it down a little bit. You can use white gouache. Oh, everybody's like the ideas with the washy edges too. All right, I'm going to clean off my brush. Let's do our splatter and then we're going to make a decision. Then I'm going to make a final decision. We're going to put all the pieces in position and then just going to go for it. Okay. Getting this nice and juicy. Spatter, spatter, spatter. Spatter, spatter, spatter. Spatter, spatter, spatter. A little bit more. Spatter sometimes can make or break the whole thing. But I do like this. All right, I'm resisting the urge to keep spattering. Let's go ahead and tidy this up just a smidge. I'm loving this. Again, oh, got a little glue here. Oopsie. Again, like you could just settle yourself in with this. Look at, just got a little smoosh there and just pop your Happy Holidays die cut on there, but we're not done. All right, I do want to dry the spatter before I start to put these two elements in and we make a decision on where we're going to go with this. Everybody's liking the idea of washing the edges. I have an idea that might be a compromise. Let's see. All right, let's try. Cut out more flower. Tanya, that's a great idea. Cut out more flowers and try all the techniques. And Tanya, that's kind of exactly what I would do. I would experiment a little bit, but we're experimenting on the fly here, right? And seeing how we like it. I can always cut out another piece. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to take a little bit of Petunia. TJ just shared splattering should be considered a mindfulness technique activity. Absolutely. Absolutely. Cheryl, you're so bad at yeah. Don't worry. If you feel like you're bad at splattering, Gina just released in her stamp set a splatter in her poinsettia stamp set. I have splatters in some of my older sets. I like to build them in every once in a while, different kind of splatters. Yeah, okay, Karen, white flower, maybe color in the center, and you have the white greeting. So now that that's dry, let's take a peek. I've got my Happy Holidays right here, kind of lower third, right? Because we've got a lot of energy happening right here. Up here, kind of comes down. We've got a lot of texture and dimension. Then it kind of fades off as we get down here at the bottom. Okay, and I want to definitely utilize that little tiny V that we see here, and we've got this little V here as being my anchor points for the design. I want my poinsettia petal to kind of point into it, just to create a connection between these two elements. So that's what it looks like if I do nothing, right? And add no color. No color. Could just add some gold to the center and call it done. And part of me just kind of wants to do that. But part of me is just thinking, what happens if I just add a little pink to my edges here? Does that even make a bean's hill of difference? It actually makes no difference whatsoever. So if I had my brush, what about a very little light green in the center of the flowers? So there it is with that little bit of pink around the edges. Let's just finish it off and add a little more pink. I'm just trying to get pink around like the edges of the flower without having it bleed into the side of the top part of the flower. So this is no easy task. No easy task. I don't really think that makes a huge hill of beans of a difference. You can see that it pops it just a little bit, but not a lot. Let's see. Ooh. Just kind of using the edge of my brush. Taking a little bit of that color around the edges. I don't know. I think I could have made it a little darker. Things would have popped a little more. Oops. I don't dislike that. But now I want to like wet it and let just a little tiny bit. Let's dry it and then kind of pop it on. I still think whoever said gold in the center, still think we need a little tiny bit of gold. All right, so added a little bit of petunia around the edges. Very subtle. Woo-hoo. Look at that, how I made it kind of pop up a little bit. Also, the other thing I didn't do is this is a die cut. I could pop those holes. I didn't pop them. I'm leaving them. All right, let's go ahead and get some foam squares in because totally nerding out and going way over today. But you know what? You're all still here, so let's do it, right? Going to just add some foam to our happy holidays and then commit to putting it down. Commit, commit, commit. I don't have any fingernails to get underneath here, so let's do that. I am definitely going to lift the sentiment up and the die. You know what? Where are those? I don't know if this works. You know what? I've got my tweezers and I'm learning how I'm learning how to use them. The scissors, the tweezers that go in opposite directions. For some reason, I challenge myself to this, but my brain struggles to understand how they work. See? I love that we're just sitting here watching Lisa struggle to use tweezers and get the paper off of her foam squares. And normally I don't because I have fingernails, but my nails are a wreck right now because I've just don't take good care of them. This is not the channel if you would like to see beautiful nails, right? There are plenty of other channels for that. Okay, whew, that took way too long. Okay, let's go ahead and just kind of pop this in. Down here in this lower third, we've got this going here. My hand is, I mean, that you could finish it off and just like that would be beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But we're not going to do that. We're going to pop this one here. There's a little schmutz on this little die cut. Let's get that off. A little piece of fuzz. Okay, don't dislike that at all. We're going to pop this on. That little tiny bit of petunia that I wasn't unsure about. A pick tool also helps get the backing off. Excellent idea. Here's my picky tool. But those scissors, my goodness. I mean, those tweezers. Struggle. Like, I see people take them and like use their die cuts and do all this great positioning with it. And I'm just like, you know, struggling. Okay. Let me get this other little glue sploot. All right, right here in that little crevasse of the H, I'm going to nest that down. Okay. You can slightly see the pink around the edges, but let me know in the chat if you see what I see. That little bit of pink that we put around the die cut created a shadow up like underneath. So it does give it even more lift, and it does give it even more texture and dimension. So not a lot of height, but look at all of this dimension that has been built into this card. Okay. Gold in the center or no? Now, before I do that, thank you, Laura. Some tweezers grip better than others. Hopefully I can find one that I think it's the user, because these are pretty amazing. Like, they're really tight, but it's the user. Here's when I did gold in that center. I actually think that gold might be kind of cool. I'm going to commit. Unless anybody pops in the chat right now, don't do the gold. Definitely see a shadow. Della says she definitely sees a shadow. Watch, if I added the gold, I'll add a little bit of gold over here so you can kind of see it. Ah, TJ, go for it. I can always count on TJ to say, just do it, right? We're going to go in. We're going to use, since I did not pop those holes, yes, the edges definitely give depth to the die cut. So I'm glad we did put a little bit of color around it. So I'm going to go in, because I did not die cut those holes. I can use the holes as my guide to just dropping in this gold color. Kind of like it. Whew, I need those glasses, friends. Those readers. Because these close-up little things aren't very clear. You can see the tat and a touch of gold. Everybody's saying a touch of gold. Okay, well, we went for it. We went for the touch of gold for sure. And then I'm just going to take, just to draw that gold out just a little bit of gold here, a little bit of gold here, gold, gold, and me, I'm going to keep it centralized. This is how my brain works. It's just like follow the design, see where you might need to add a little something. And then I kind of want to put one right there. Okay, I think that's it. I think it's it. We need to be done, right? I don't really like what I did with my gold. My gold looks a little weird in the center. Kind of went out a little bit too far. This gold pen was super juicy. Which, you know, it's either feast or famine with your gold pens. They're either dried up or they're super juicy. We ended up adding a little bit more of a gold. I don't know if I like the gold in the center. But it's going to grow on me and I'm going to love it. yeah, it's going to grow on me and I'm going to love it. All right, friends, look. So, okay, let's just double back because we definitely went over. Here was the original inspiration, tone on tone. And then here's the inspiration. Here's what we did together. We designed this together and we experimented together. And I absolutely love the way it came out. Except for that gold in the center. I'm going to have to rethink it. So when y'all see me post this picture later, I may have replaced that die cut. But we learned a lot of valuable things along the way. Specifically, you can use your dies to emboss into cardstock to create tone-on-tone looks, or do it into watercolor paper in order to create more of a washy watercolor ethereal look that we created today. So super fun. It's just a really great way to use your dies and become a little more versatile with them. Of course, our dies make great die cuts, but there's so much more that we can do with them. Second, we use the brand new colors, Petunia and Marigold today. To do some washy watercolor. And I talked about the differences between watercoloring with ink and watercoloring with traditional watercolor. Pigment versus dye. Dye is beautiful and bright and luscious, but you have to kind of work a little quicker, and you need the paper to be super wet, and you need to tone down the amount of ink that you first apply to paper. Okay. All right, friends. I definitely went over today and we nerded out in a big way, but we did it together. So thanks so much for joining me. I will be back next week. It's either going to be on Wednesday or Thursday. It's looking more like it's going to be on Wednesday. We'll have another tutorial. I have a couple of ideas, but I do want to briefly talk about the holiday season and my holiday paper crafting series. I'm going to be starting this there's a good chance it might start next week into November. So every year for the last 2 years, I've done 4 weeks of holiday paper crafting ideas. We've done a card, tag, and an ornament, and we've done oversized cards. And all along the way, we've done lots of watercolor and they were very technique heavy, but super fun, and you're creating things that you can use for the holiday season. So I'm going to be doing a series. If you're on my email list, you'll get that information sent right out to you. Keep an eye out on my YouTube channel. And yeah, it's going to be super fun. Cheryl just shared this was the most fun tutorial. Learned some new things. Yay! I love going sideways too. Love it. Everybody's saying such wonderful and beautiful things. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sending you into the weekend to craft your joy. All of the information with the supplies and everything that we talked about today is listed down below in the description. I also have my email list information down below in the description and my free watercolor community information listed in the description. So if you're at all interested, take a peek at that. Okay, friends, I will, again, be back next week. And keep an eye out. And in the meantime, I cannot wait to see what you create. And when I repost this tutorial, when I repost this card in the Gina K Facebook group, we'll see if I've replaced that poinsettia. Okay, friends, thanks so much for joining me. Have a great weekend. Bye now.